So my TRIUMPH NSS8 4-post lift arrived at the freight depot and I went to pick it up. Let me start off by saying if you're going to install this yourself, you'll need metric tools, you'll need to be handy and fairly strong. Most importantly, you're going to need a trailer. With that being said, I found a few places that would deliver the lift to your home, but you still have to get it off the truck yourself. The entire unit weighs about 1,800 pounds, so unless you have a forklift, you won't be able to unload it for home delivery. I also checked around for someone to do the install. Estimates were anywhere from $600 to $1,000, so I figured I'd give it a shot. I decided to make this video because even though I found several videos on YouTube about installing lifts, I couldn't find any on the TRIUMPH NSS8. I will also say I did not receive any install instructions with my lift. The place I purchased my lift from did email me a set of instructions, but they were pretty useless and not even specific to my lift. I tried to make this video as short as possible, so I didn't include items that seemed pretty straightforward. I have placed videos at the very end of this video to illustrate some of the more difficult areas of install along with notes. If you have any questions about the install, post to my video and I will do my best to answer those questions. So to start off, you need to make sure that the pawls, the safety pawls here, are on the outside, and it's pretty simple. You just stand them up. I've got these on some sawhorses on each side. Again, I'm doing this by myself, so it's going to take longer, but if you don't have help, rest assured this is something you can do by yourself. So once you get the blocks started in, you're going to push this all the way to the bottom. And what I did, because the pawls are spring-loaded, you actually have to go, or I tie wrapped them together. I pulled them back up and tie wrapped them so I could slide them all the way down real easy. So once you get them slid all the way down, I undid the tie wrap over there and I put it on the very top stop. I think that's what they tell you to do in the manual. So what I did, because I am working alone, is I took a 2x4, didn't have a long enough one so I had to splice it, but I put just a screw in this hole up in here and one on the other side there, and now I'm going to attempt to lift it. So you probably are thinking I skipped a few steps here ahead. The runways were very difficult to do by yourself. I did get them. I ended up using a couple of car jacks, and then I had, if you can see right there, a couple of sawhorses just like that. And I kind of just slid them into place. It was ugly, it was very unsafe. So if you have a couple people, actually 4 would be about right, because this one over here was not heavy. This one here that has the ram in it and all the cables, that was incredibly heavy. And I got to tell you, in the instructions I saw, the cables were not mounted. Now the cables, at least on mine, they come mounted underneath, and it's really nice because you don't have to measure anything, take anything. The cables are all there. They're run. It's very intuitive on where they go, and they're tie wrapped up inside, so it should be pretty simple to go and route them. One thing that you do have to do is stretch the ram out, and there is an air fitting on the ram, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. It's up in here, it's right here, And that air fitting, you actually have to apply air to, or you can actually pull the ram out with like a come along, but putting air in here will extend the ram out. So that's really the best way to do that. Also, one other item is on this end. Now this is my ramp end. You know, I've got the plates on here. This is my ramp end. And I've never seen these bolts in any of the videos I have watched, but these are the bolts that came with mine, and I don't know if you can see that real good. It's not a standard bolt. Anyway, these bolts have to go in on the outside, and then the nuts right there. You can see that those are just they're standard nuts. That is on the inside. Now on the other end, it's just the opposite. And the reason it is just the opposite, where that has to run right there, that has to go here, is because this cable will rub if you have the nut on the inside. And by the way, when you're putting these on, I Loctited everything. I use regular medium thread 242 Loctiter, just because I think things are going to rattle and stuff. So anyway, the next item is to go and put the caps back on up above. And I'm also going to use Loctite on these. By the way, these had to come off to go and slip the actual cross members in. So there's 4 bolts. When these came, the bolts were in here. A lot of the bolts were missing. And fortunately, in the shipping rack was metal on either ends. They actually had similar bolts, lock washers, and nuts. Because again, this is all metric. I don't know about everyone else, but here it's tough to get metric stuff of this size. And all the nuts on the racking case, metal case, cage, all had nylock nuts. So I'm going to reuse some of the nylock nuts on here, just again for vibration, besides the thread type. So I'm going to go and start putting the cables up, and I'm not going to bore you to death with this, but you got to take the nuts and the washer off, and this bolt actually will fit right up here through each hole. You kind of have to make a little loop in it, and once you get it up in here, the loop comes right out, and then you're free to pull it down, and you're good to go. I'm not going to bore you with all of the other 4, but they're as simple as that. So the next thing you got to do is mount the pump. And I wish they would have given like another 4 set of nuts here, so you could actually, it'd have been a lot easier to flip these nuts out, nut it here, and then slip it on. Again, go buy some metric nuts if you want to make it easier on yourself. I did put this unit again on myself. It is extremely heavy. Again, it'd be a lot easier with 2 people. And then you need to hook up your hoses. Now on here, and I don't know if you can see it that well, there is a rubber washer. Do not over tighten that. I wouldn't put any kind of Teflon tape or any kind of dope on that. Snug it down, and if it needs to get tighter, once you power it up, tighten it up. These are flared type fitting. You can tighten that down, so you need 2 wrenches, you know, to hold this in while it's snug, and then tighten this down. And the same goes for this end down here. You know, it's flared fitting. Just tighten it, tighten that nut, and you're good to go. By the way, all, and I've seen a couple different videos on these. This unit came everything assembled. This piece underneath with the hose that goes to the ram, that was all there. All I had to do is poke it through the hole, put the nut on, and it was done. And I know I've seen different videos where they've actually had to go and thread all that and put pipe dope on it and the whole works. So, and you don't on this, so, which is really nice. So then the electrical, this I gotta believe, and it doesn't say anywhere in any of the manuals or anything. This is, I'm sure, some kind of a safety trip switch somewhere. They've got to jump it across, and I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna touch anything. So, and connecting up the power to this, and I don't know, you know, it says, oh, get electrician, blah, blah, blah. But I did not. And this is the color code. You know, black is hot in the US, white is neutral, green is ground. And on these, I think it's a European standard, or not for sure, maybe China standard, I don't know. Anyway, brown is hot, green and yellow striped is ground, and blue is neutral. And basically I bought some extension cord, put a grip plug on the other end, and I crimped these together. I was gonna solder them, but I went, I think these will be plenty good. I bought number 12. This is, again, this motor says it's 19 amps, and it's got 2 capacitors. So it is a cap start motor, but I bet you any amount of money it probably draws 30 or 40 amps on startup. So I know these are not 12 gauge. I bought 12 gauge wire. I ran a 20 amp circuit out, and hopefully that will be enough. So, and moving around to this side, and hopefully you can see it. It's already dark because it's thundering out, but this little plug right here, and it's mentioned nowhere. This is like almost out. And I've kind of done some searches. I can't find anything. So I basically just screwed it back in. We'll see when I run power to it to go and see if it leaks or see if it needed to bleed air, or who knows. Anyway, that's it. Now that I've got the motor all set, there were no leaks out of here, so that must be okay. I haven't heat shrinked down my connections here, but I'm going to heat shrink down that a little later. But the motor does run. By the way, I've seen so many different versions of these motors. This happens to be a dual cap start, 1.5 horse, 19 amps. But my guess at startup, it probably draws 30 or 40 amps. So again, I'd use a 20 amp breaker to do that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the linkage for the safety pawls, you know, that you need to start up and down. And see over here, I got a couple of quick grips because it's only me. You're going to need that to hold these in place while you align it. So, and again, all this was actually put together. All these link rods were here. All the ends, all the screws, nuts were attached. I didn't lose anything, thank goodness, but none of that was in a package. Just, again, every unit I've seen has been a little bit different. So to go and line these up, there's a bushing here. This sits on the outside so you don't rub any of the linkage up against any of these bolts. And this rod here, I would say probably goes about at this angle. And this is going to happen at both ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the quick grips, and once I have these underneath the unit, I am going to go and quick grip this here to hold it in place. And and I'm not going to show you underneath how I'm going to be attaching this because it's pretty simple. You know, there's 2 sets of these. They're opposite thread. You just tighten it up. You tighten the lock nuts, get this all nice and secure. Right here in the middle, there is a metal piece of pipe that's welded up that rod goes through to go and support it in the middle. So I'm going to finish that up and we'll be back. So you can see all the linkage is in. If you look really close, you'll see that, you know, this is the kind of angle it's at. Just make sure when you quick grip it, they're there. I can quick show you the linkage underneath, but there isn't a whole lot to see. Anyway, there you have it. Again, I'm trying to make this video short enough that it's not going to bore everyone to death. The other thing I did is they said to go and use regular grease, and instead of using grease, I'm using a thing called white lithium grease. This is liquid wrench. I'm sure there's other manufacturers, but rather than brushing this on up and down this area, because you have to make sure that these guys here are lubed up, right? So this is a whole lot easier, I thought, than than going and try to brush something on. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, well, I'll probably update the post and let everyone know. The next thing I have to do now is put these guards on, adjust the cables to the right tightness, and again, because I've never really seen any videos tightening up the cables, I think the most important part is these pawls are locked in all at the same time. So I think it's probably a listing thing. As they go up, they're going to go and click into place. Anyway, there you have it. So I've adjusted the cables, and I'm going to tell you kind of how I did it. I took the first one, and I brought it so it was a full nut on top, so your threads are sticking through just a little bit. I'm sure you need that just for strength wise. Then I brought the unit up to a height above these guys, right? And then I took, and I know this sounds kind of big dealing it, but I took a micrometer and I measured from the safety pawl up to here, and I kind of went all the way around, and I adjusted them accordingly to make sure they're all the same. Now, everything that I have been told about these is they do stretch. So I haven't put any weight on them. I know I've heard people say, well, you really need weight on them to adjust your cables. But I adjusted the nuts several times, and every time they adjust a little bit different. Now I've got them to within about a 32nd of an inch, and I'm sure after I load a vehicle on it and leave it set for a while, raise it up and down, they're going to go and stretch again. Anyway, I wanted to mention a couple more things. I'm not going to show you how to put the wheel lift kit together, but I will tell you I use TRIUMPH on all the bearings, and again, the liquid wrench lithium grease on all the slides. Everything seems to be going up and down very smoothly. And in the background, you will see the wheel and the wheel kit. Again, pretty simple to put on. They have these are the locking ones. I've seen so many different kinds of CD handles. I've seen all kinds of things on that. And one other thing that I had never seen in any of them was this little safety pin. Now this makes sure you can't go above this point, and you actually probably could. So I put them in. Cool. Didn't even pop a breaker. I started it up under load, and they claim never do that because. Okay, she's resting on the cogs. Things look good. She can go up a lot higher, but you're gonna have to wait because it's still freaking me out.